Ladies and gentlemen, hit subscribe to this channel right now. This is Samuel Alito. Quote, both the executive and judiciary have an obligation to follow the law. The executive and the judiciary have an obligation to follow the law. Judges must follow the law just like defendants in their courtroom, just like prosecutors, just like everyone in society. If they don't follow the law, it has nothing to do with a political statement. They're going to be treated in the same manner as anyone else. President Trump is the antithesis of an authoritarian. He's actually enforcing existing laws. If Democrats think he's an authoritarian and tyrant, they can simply amend or reform existing immigration laws. According to the statutes currently, Trump is enforcing those laws in a manner that Biden chose not to enforce. Okay, Democrats don't like that, and certain judges potentially don't like that. Check this out. This is huge, ladies and gentlemen. What Samuel Alito and in his dissent did was allow President Trump to enforce laws, and if that means, well, President Trump, under Article 2, Section 1 of the Constitution, needs to enforce laws. He's the commander-in-chief of this country. He leads the executive branch, must enforce laws. But this is very interesting because judges who don't follow the law now, in the future, will get arrested, just like the past two judges. Check this out.
I don't see this as a case of showboating. We've heard from the Attorney General and we heard from the federal agents who were on the scene that this judge allegedly engaged in a pretty disturbing course of conduct. She obviously did not want the federal agents to execute the warrant and take this person into federal custody. And again, according to the allegations, are very serious, is that she basically escorted him out through a secret exit and did everything she could to hustle him out of the courthouse in security. And that ended up in, as the Attorney General reported, a pretty extraordinary scene outside the courthouse when the federal agents literally had to chase the guy down the street as he was running away from them. It's not exactly judicious behavior by the judge.
Could you imagine any of these judges, these federal or state judges, doing that with January defendants? They would never in a million years do that. Okay, when it comes to politics, a judge or a politician, if they're liberal or if they're aligned with the Democratic Party or if they're Democrats, will do oftentimes everything possible to make a spectacle of a conservative or a supporter of Trump being arrested, or media will have this fanfare and jubilation. They'll try to make an example of any conservative or any supporter of Trump, and they'll say, look what these people have done, these terrible, horrible human beings. Well, it's like, okay, there happen to be instances where undocumented immigrants have committed crimes. Number one, there's no documentation there in terms of being in the country. Number two, and that's a crime in and of itself, according to Tom Homan and President Trump's administration. Number two, if there's criminal activity associated with the undocumented individual, there's a litany then of a criminal behavior that you have to address. Simply defending this individual, ensuring that it's difficult for federal agents to arrest the individual, or ICE agents, you're not doing anything to protect society. You're not doing anything that's moral or just. If you want to amend the laws, Democrats in Wisconsin, in New Mexico, in New York, in California, and elsewhere should simply amend the laws. There are specific statutes that could be easily amended or reformed in Congress. Democrats don't have the House, but they can address, they can simply run in 26 to regain the House. If they think that Trump is an authoritarian, they can simply run on making undocumented immigrants who potentially committed crimes, making them immune or limiting any effort by the executive branch, by the president, to remove them from the country, preventing deportation, or they can try their best to simply run in 2026 on ensuring that undocumented immigrants who potentially committed crimes are allowed to stay in the country without fear of deportation. Why don't Democrats run on that? If that sounds outlandish or absurd, it's because Democrats don't believe. They don't even believe in their alleged value system. The value system states that even if you're the liberal Democratic Party value system states if you're undocumented, you potentially committed a crime, or you've had a past criminal history, you should not be deported. Then roll with it. That's all I'm saying. If you believe it, Democrats, run on it. But they don't believe. They don't believe in their alleged value system. They just want to create enough fanfare and hysteria, and they want to paint Trump as an authoritarian for enforcing existing laws that Democrats signed off on.
And put your deputy AG hat back on for a moment, if you will. And if I were bringing to you a case of a judge and his wife that were harboring an alleged Tren de Aragua gang member that was allowed access to guns and could show you the tattoos, the evidence that ties him to the gang, as well as the evidence that shows that he was residing in this casita on the Cano's property, would you see that as justified to go out and arrest him?
Well, I would. Look, I mean, the fact is here too, you have what is allegedly just extreme, extraordinary behavior. I mean, no one in our society should be engaging in that sort of conduct, harboring gang members, giving them assault weapons and that sort of thing. And the fact that someone is a judge or a former judge doesn't give them a pass to do this sort of conduct. So again, look, everyone is innocent until proven guilty. These are all just allegations, but based on these very serious allegations, it's hard for me to see how you could characterize this as showboating rather than simply enforcing the laws of the United States.
Hey, Tom, I want to show, I did this in the last hour, but it really struck me. Senator Amy Klobuchar, who is a former prosecutor from Hennepin County, she put this up. She says, this is not normal. The administration's arrest of a sitting judge in Wisconsin is a drastic move that threatens the rule of law. While we don't have all the details, this is a grave step and undermines our system of checks and balances. We know the details, although there are allegations yet to be played out, but it strikes me that maybe some Democrats may be missing the point of the fundamentals of the rule of law.
Well, I think what the senator is missing here is that this is not a situation in which these judges were arrested for performing their judicial duties, right? This is not a case where the judges rendered some decision that the administration didn't like and the administration said, let's address these judges. Instead, what these judges did is what if any other member of society did would be viewed in most quarters as a criminal offense. In other words, they were not acting in their capacity as judges, hearing cases, deciding cases, administering the law. They were in one instance escorting, trying to hustle someone out to evade federal arrest. In the other situation, they were allegedly harboring gang members and giving them weapons. So again, I don't really see this as a dire threat to the separation of powers because these judges are not being penalized for exercising their proper judicial functions.
Yeah, it's pretty remarkable once you dig a little bit into the case out of New Mexico and you read the criminal complaint about this guy, Christian Ortega Lopez, and on the property of the Canos. They say the defendant was introduced to Nancy Cano's daughter, April, who possessed a large number of firearms. The defendant advised that April allowed him to hold and sometimes shoot various firearms. Then it goes on to say the defendant advised he knew it was illegal for him to possess firearms. This judge and wife are looking at quite significant charges, perhaps more so than even in the case of Hannah Dugan.
Look, it's from my perspective, it is inexplicable how these things could have happened, because you would think of all people, judges are the ones that we look to enforce the rule of law, to understand what is legal and illegal in our society.
And whether it's Hunter Biden or whether it's that story regarding the firearms and the undocumented individual, Democrats want to erase the Second Amendment. Oh my God, they will pontificate about gun control, and when it's about Hunter Biden or this story or all the terrible, terrible, terrible tragedies that take place in blue states, blue cities, it's just really unbelievable. Anyway, hit subscribe to this channel. You look, ladies and gentlemen, President Trump is following the law. He's following the law. and enforcing the law. And if you are a judge that happens to break the law, he will arrest. Hit subscribe.